Good afternoon to everyone joining us for the latest Institute of Place Management and Regional Studies Association webinar. For those that don't know me, my name is Ian Harvey and I'm the head of the Institute of Place Management based at Manchester Metropolitan University. And this is the latest webinar as the two organisations have come together to sort of embed our networks to learn more about each other's work. So I'm really pleased to be here today. And I understand we have about 60 to 70 people that will be joining us. So I'm looking forward to the discussion. So who are we? Well, the Institute of Place Management, we're a professional network that we work with place managers in the UK, across Europe and the rest of the world as we connect practitioners working in places with academics at Manchester Metropolitan University. So we're trying to improve places for everyone, everywhere. And we've been undertaking this series webinar with the Regional Studies Association, which is the global and interdisciplinary network for urban and regional development. And they support their members with the latest research, funding schemes, networking and publishing opportunities and spaces to grow research and careers. And over the past sort of 6 or 7 months, we've held 4 different webinars, focusing on pride in place, focus on the evolution, as we continue to bring together academics and sort of practitioners. This webinar today, as in the other webinars that we've recorded, will all be made available on the Regional Studies Association website afterwards. But without further ado, I want to get down to sort of the session for today. And I'm delighted, as part of the Institute of Place Management sort of work, to connect place managers working across territories. We have a focus today, bringing together colleagues from the Netherlands, and we have a bit of a spotlight on the Netherlands from a place management perspective. And I'm delighted that we've got 4 different speakers who will be joining us today, and I'll introduce them all one by one with their full sort of biographies as we go through the session. But individually, we have Josh Sentel, who's from the City Deal Dynamic City Centres. We'll then have Nina Wols-Boons, who's the Strategic Advisor, Citybranding for the Networking Citymarketing. Then we will have Marleen Strien from DNWS, and then we will finish with Jeroen Roose-Van Leijden from the Centrum Management Utrecht, the Netherlands. Without further ado, and sort of mindful we have an hour, I'm mindful you've all given us your time, I'm going to invite Josh into sort of the session. So Josh and each speaker will talk for about 10 to sort of 11 minutes, and then we will have a set of discussions at the end. So please use the chat function to say where you are from, whether you're representing an academic institution, which country you are from. Please do connect in the chat function, and please also do pose your questions there. And as the session goes on towards the end, I'll pull out 1 or 2 questions and I'll share them with our panelists. But Josh, I hope you're sort of getting ready, and I will read your biography as the slides sort of come up on the screen. So Josh Sentel holds a degree in urban planning and business administration. He is an independent advisor in real estate and urban development. As Programme Coordinator of the City Deal Dynamic City Centres, Josh brings together cities, national government and other stakeholders to learn from real projects and apply those lessons more broadly. A key part of his work is making collaboration more effective and ensuring that ideas lead to implementation, which is something that I'm sure all IPM members who are on the call will absolutely endorse. So Josh, looking forward to your talk. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Ian. Good afternoon to you all. Today, I will briefly introduce what the Dutch City Deal on Dynamic City Centres is about, and the abbreviation CDDB is obviously the Dutch abbreviation. You will see that constantly in my presentation, but the English translation is the City Deal on Dynamic City Centres. I will explain what it is, how it works, and what we have learned so far. And most importantly, what might be relevant for cities outside the Netherlands. The City Deal on Dynamic City Centres is a national collaboration platform for inner city transformation. That's a mouthful, but it's necessary to say that it is not a traditional program. It is a 4-year program in which 10 cities, 4 government departments, and also knowledge institutions and other stakeholders are involved. Over the past years, it has built a portfolio of more than 20 projects. and a broad network of professionals working on city center transformation. This was almost 3 years ago when we started the city deal on a dynamic city centers. You see a number of aldermen, I think that's the correct English description for that, and representatives of a few ministries, and they put their autograph on that large cardboard thing to underpin their involvement in the city deal, and to work together 4 years on the things I've mentioned already. Why was it created? The starting point was a shared recognition. City centers in the Netherlands, but obviously abroad as well, are under pressure. And the challenges are no longer sectoral. Retail decline triggered the urgency, but quickly it became clear that it is about the full urban system. The increasing complexity, housing, mobility, safety, livability, climate adaptation, those type of topics, added up to, let's say, the primary perspective of retail decline. But also, we noticed that existing tools were insufficient to, let's say, look at these problems and come up with solutions. So no single city or organization can solve this alone, and that created a need for cross-city and cross-sector collaboration, and that's, let's say, the primary objective within the city deal. How does it work? A key feature of the city deal is the integration of research and practice. At this moment, or during the first 3 years of the city deal, more than 80 representatives of the cities and other organizations involved worked on those 20 plus projects I've already talked about. We do not only produce reports, but we also test ideas in real urban contexts. To structure this, we use a simple framework. What do we produce? What does it change? And why does it matter in the long term? And that's the structure, output, outcome, impact. That logic is like the leading motive within the city deal. Bridging research and practice. We learned that knowledge alone is not enough. That is why we are now moving towards what we call Studio Binnenstad. And Binnenstad obviously is the Dutch word for city center. This is an approach where we apply all insights from, let's say, the 20 plus projects I've already talked about in concrete, local cases through a structured series of living labs. The goal is to move from insight to real change. What are then the key lessons learned until today? We still have 1 year to go. One of the most important lessons is that inner city transformation is a systemic challenge. City centers require integrated approaches because it cuts across domains like housing, retail, mobility, and safety. But this often clashes with how municipalities are organized, which makes implementation difficult. Real estate, regulation, and governance are deeply intertwined, so that means that the knot has to be untied, and we do our best to get that organized within the city deal. Another key insight is that we do not lack knowledge or instruments. The real challenge we've noticed lies in the application, in applying them effectively. Regulation, ownership structures, and organizational capacity often slow things down. And that is where the real breakthrough is needed. Why collaboration matters. Transformation exceeds individual capacity. And this is why collaboration is essential. Cities, we've noticed, face very similar challenges. So there's an enormous value in learning together. It also helps to build momentum and create a stronger national and even political agenda. If I translate this to cities abroad, these would be my main takeaways. Organize continuous learning, not only one-off projects. Integrate public and private perspectives early. Work with real cases, not abstract strategies. Invest in implementation capacity. And last but certainly not least, create space for experimentation and political alignment. So focus not just on strategy, but the ability to implement and experiment. And my final thought for this webinar, when you want to get from knowledge to impact, then the City Deal shows that the challenge is not the lack of ideas. It's about organizing ourselves differently to actually make things happen. And that requires collaboration across cities, sectors, and disciplines. Thank you very much for your attention. And well, I've managed to do this in 10 minutes. Hopefully that leaves some extra time for my fellow speakers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Josh. That was great. And from a place manager practitioner, what you've just talked about there from the Netherlands, I could have easily been sitting there listening to a talk from the UK, from a colleague in the US, in Australia. The issues, the sort of the ways that we learn, they're all global. It's not a shortage of ideas. So it's how we organise and collaborate. Absolutely. Thank you for that, Josh. Now I'm delighted to sort of move on to sort of Nina Wols-Boons. Nina is a strategic advisor in city branding for the municipality of Rotterdam, the second city of the Netherlands. She focuses on how to implement the city's values in the internal organisation and policies. Her personal mission is to raise awareness amongst fellow civil servants to utilise the identity of a place to manage and shape cities. Thumbs up to that. Nina is a board member of the networking Citymarketing in the Netherlands, which focuses on furthering the fields of city marketing on a national level. And I know Nina because she is also studying the place management and leadership postgraduate sort of degree at Manchester Metropolitan University, is how I first got to know Nina. So Nina, really looking forward to your talk for the next 11 minutes. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Ian, and thank you again for asking me to be here. It's a complete honor. So I am going to talk about something that's very, very Dutch, namely King's Day. So that's one of the main holidays that we have in the Netherlands that celebrates our king's birthday. And in 2023, the king decided he wanted to come to the Netherlands, to Rotterdam, to celebrate his birthday. Every year, a different city hosts him. And when we got the call, we of course wanted to make sure it was a truly Rotterdam feel King's Day. So I'm going to tell you a bit about how we did that. So like Ian said, I work for the municipality. This is our team. We're very small, but we do a lot. And we specifically focus on city branding, not city marketing. We have a great organization in Rotterdam who does our city marketing. So we can fully focus on how to incorporate the Rotterdam brand in everything that we do. And everything that we do is based on Rotterdam values. So this completely centers around our DNA. So what are the values of Rotterdam? Well, for starters, we are very bold. We are courageous, straightforward, creative, proud, unpolished, and unfinished. We are forward. We have a can-do mentality, a very energetic, pioneering, groundbreaking, like thinking big and are very action-oriented. And culture. So we are very diverse as a city. We are very open and welcoming, curious and progressive, and very connected. And we love our crossovers, especially the unexpected ones. So we have a unique value proposition in Rotterdam. Rotterdam is a bold, forward, and international port city. a city of space and possibility to be yourself and become who you want to be. So we are ever evolving, and we do a lot of innovation in society, culture, public space, and a new economy. So how do we actually use those things in what we do as a city branding team? How do we do our job then? So we focus on discovering the new possibilities to the fusion of values. So we create sort of a new brand and a compelling position statement by using the values of our city with in this case, the values of King's Day. So, like I said, when it was said that the king would come to Rotterdam, we want to make sure it was an inclusive holiday, inclusive national holiday. We want to make sure that everyone felt seen. So if you look at the King's Day values, so to say, this is what a traditional King's Day could look like in the Netherlands. Very old-fashioned games, maybe not as flattering. I mean, our king is not portrayed very very kind in that picture. But even though this might look a bit foolish, maybe, the actual values that underlay this are very important. They center around a regard for young people and the future, tolerance, and connectedness. So these are actually very good values to combine with the values of Rotterdam, we found. Because as we go to the combination, we have hand in hand as united, resilient and hospitable, bold with courage and authentic, and creative. So think outside the box in unusual combinations and with humor. And of course, sustainability, circularity, inclusion are self-evident. They need to be there, but they are not incorporated in the values. We see them as a baseline, so to say. So this resulted in a couple of guidelines, handholds to make sure that everything that the complete organization did around King's Day was in accordance with those values. We have things like this, so guidelines for organizing a King's Day. We had a central theme. You can see that on top. I don't have a translated version of this, I'm sorry. But this is basically an expansion on the values that I mentioned before that I did translate. And they made the programming of the whole day a bit more cohesive, so to say. This is our own strategy form that we had as a city branding team. So we centered everything around the number 10 because our area code is 010. You can see the values, you can see everything that we did. So we did a lot of city dressing. We had a dress your own building, dress your store, dress each other, dress yourself. So we could make sure that everyone in the whole city was able to celebrate the day with us. All right, so how can this look like? Well, this is our queen. This is the scarf of our one of our football clubs. It said that the king is a fervent fan of the main football club in Amsterdam, which is our rivaling city. But here you can see our queen with the biggest club in Rotterdam, Feyenoord. This was a perfect, unexpected moment, but I am willing to say that everything that we did leading up to this has contributed to her feeling free enough to be able to support us in the city in this way. She's also wearing our city colors, by the way, which are green and white. So this translated in lots of different things. So we had Orange for Good. You can see on the next slide. We vlogged a lot of our city dressing articles. We had collaborations with social workplaces to bake cookies, and percent of the sale was contributed to charities that had a lot of things to do with children. So you can see the food bank and the soup kitchen. So we made sure that everyone, even if you don't have a lot of money, was able to celebrate in a different way. Decorate yourself. So how can you celebrate with things you have at home, like old cardboard, even a potato stamp if you want, or make your own flags. Orange at Home, which was the competition that we had, so you could use official city branding in how to decorate your home. So these are the official materials, and you can use them at your home. Also very important, and then we'll skip through the results. We had the tough conversations along the route. It's very uncommon for the king to have really hard conversations with the public live on television. So we had a slavery discussion, and we have a scandal around taxes. And they talked about it live on television, which is also a perfect translation of how we are as a city, not afraid to talk about the difficult subjects. But maybe if it was purely a King's Day in a traditional way, wouldn't have been possible. So the residents of King's Day gave an average of 8.2 for King's Day itself and 8.6 for the city dressing, which is very high, as Dutchies are not inclined to give anything a mark higher than an 8. So it's very, very good, actually. And they think we have succeeded in executing and fulfilling the theme of we are all kings and queens. Urban pride and fellowship, especially in the south of Rotterdam, residents indicated they were extra proud of their neighborhood. And 35% has met new people, feels more connected, and 90% intends to meet with more people in the neighborhood more often, which is, of course, a very nice thing to have, because most of the times the King's Day is sort of a hit and run. So people who actually live in the city don't enjoy the benefits of a King's Day as much as you would expect. So Rotterdamers felt welcome, at home, and free to be themselves, which are, of course, in accordance with our own city values. And the visitors felt the same way as well. We have a very attractive city, which, of course, we know, but it's nice to hear that they felt it on the same day as well. We have shown a different side of Rotterdam, and people have started to think more positively about the city, which is, of course, also very, very positive for how we are viewed and what everything that we can do in the city. Our legacy. So 28 companies have participated with Orange for Good. So they now donated more than 17,000 euros of their profit, 10% of the profit, to different social initiatives. And there were some unexpected collaborations between entrepreneurs and social initiatives that actually still last to this day, so even 3 years on. And then economy. So we estimate that the total impact on an economic level is 6 to 7 million on King's Day, which is quite a bit of money, of course. And with that, I think I've sprinted to the last slides. I hope I've given a bit of an insight into what we did as a city on King's Day.
That was amazing, Nina. Really quite inspiring, and even impressive that you got through so much within sort of the 11 minutes. But I think what you really showed is the link between branding, culture, economic impact, place management. It's also tied together, and orange definitely is the colour for today. But I also accept green and white is also your city sort of colour. Thank you for that, Nina. That was wonderful. I'll now pass over to Marleen, who will come in for our third talk. Marleen Strien is a city marketing professional focused on residents. She works as an account manager for the Dutch knowledge platform DNWS, where she supports municipalities in improving the performance and attractiveness of their city centre. In addition, she also works as a city centre manager in 2 small city centres. Marleen has completed the Centre Management Academy and the programme in placemaking. Marleen, really pleased to have you with us today. Over to you.
Thanks so much. All right, I'll tell you something about the platform I work for. I work there now 2 years, and my career started in retail at a post company in Holland, and I switched to the e-commerce, and I really by accident got connected to the city center in Woerden, where I live now for 10 years, and I was really interested in how this works. So that's why I did the course Jeroen will tell you about next presentation. And that's how I got to the platform I work now. And this is, it exists for 10 years now. And it's powered by In Retail and Centrum. And those are both industry organizations who help the individual shop owners on different subjects. And they were really worried about the the shopping street, how it will develop in the future. So that's how they thought we should have something about the collective, and that's where we are for. And the translation of the DNWS is called the New Shopping Street. And we have 100 municipalities. That's 1/3 of all the municipalities in Holland who are connected to us, and we're helping them with different subjects. So what do? We develop the knowledge around future-proof city centers. It's, I think, kind of similar to what Jos does, but I think the things that we organize are a little bit different, and we exist already some longer, so a little bit the different focus. But we learn a lot together as well. So I visit the meetings of Jos as well. So what we do is we write articles about the subjects that people struggling with. I make podcasts of the people things that I'm asked very often, so I don't have to repeat myself all the time. I do the online meetings about some questions I got, and I invite an expert to tell about the solutions and the thing they find out about it. And we also have offline meetings because we know that the networking part is also very important. So here you see some events that we had last year. And I think it's really important that people meet other people who struggle with exactly the same issues, and that you're not the only one having those challenges in your inner city. So as I told, my role is to be account manager, and I visit all the cities and I connect people. For example, when someone asks me, okay, I have to realize a pop-up park in my city, how can I do that? I know always someone who does the same in their own city, and I connect them together. So I exchange the numbers. But it's also some questions that I get really often. For example, the shopping evening. How should we deal with that? And that's why I decided to make a podcast of it. And then it's really easy. Okay, just listen to it, and you can learn from it. They're in Dutch, unfortunately, but I think it's a really nice way of giving the knowledge to the people. So what are the subjects? I think Jeroen will come to this as well. They're similar to the academy that Jeroen is giving. So they're clean, intact and safe. Collaboration, of course, the city identity Nina told us about already. Transformation, what's more in Jos's subjects as well. And data and digitalization. And we're doing this together. In the good case, we call it the golden circle. That's including everyone from culture to real estate to the local business owners, municipality, and the residents. That's the perfect situation, and not in every city everyone's involved, but this should be the perfect group having together on these subjects. So we have 2 focus groups work together with the cities and the companies who have a lot of knowledge about it. I will give you a short introduction to this, but if you want to know more, contact me and then I'll can tell you some more about it later. It's called Modern Agora. I will tell you what it is. It's a mix of functions. I'll give some examples, and it's the focus group on data, and with the focus on this moment on the footfall. So if we talk about data and city centers, people always tell me, okay, we want to start with data-driven. How we do that things together. But actually, in the focus group that we talked about, that you actually should be action-driven. and not a lot of people are aware of these the difference between it. So if I ask a group of people and I ask, okay, do you have data on your city center? Most people do have some data, but the challenge is to get from the data to information. So for example, you see the number of people walking in the street. Okay, how do you make information on that, and how do you come from information to insights? And the most important step, and I think Jeroen is an example in that in Holland, is how can you make a decision from what you see in your data? So how can you really get an action from it? So that's the perfect situation. So here is a dashboard. I think it's a really simple one. It's from a city in Holland, where they have key indicators based on a plan that they have made for the city center. And it's really easy. It's going better than expected, or it's getting worse than expected. It's a really easy dashboard, but I really like the simplicity of it. So that's what we really support. So then the other team is about the mixture functions in your city center. And I was really surprised that the amount of retail there is now in the city centers is actually quite recent. If you look at the past of the city centers in the past. So here you see an image of Athene. It's the main city of Greece. And there's the word agora comes from. It's similar to the Forum in Rome. It's the place where everything happens and everyone comes to the center to do sports, for example, or culture or politics, or doesn't really matter, education. Everything is centered in the city center. And since the Second World War, the economics grew in the world, and since then there is so much retail as we see now, and so many restaurants, and it has never been that amount. So, and we believe that in the future we should find a new balance in the amount of retail. Here are the numbers in Holland, and you see the green line going down for 26%, and you see that it's quite heavy what's happening here with the retail. You see the purple line, it's hospitality and leisure, which is growing, but we never believe that the amount of hospitality can compensate the amount of retail what's going down. So that's why we believe in vital city centers, which should add culture, healthcare, educations, socials, sports and crafts. And in the next slides, you have some nice examples. This is a ceramic shop in the city center of Gouda, a small place of 80,000 inhabitants in Holland. This is a nice example in Amsterdam, where the real estate owner believes that adding culture is also good for the safety of the shopping street area. So he added a hip hop foundation, it's called, and a museum related to the culture of the place where the shopping center is. And there's also another city center owner, and he has another interest, and he is they're going to add the healthcare and sports and wellness, and not only the sports, but also a doctor and where you get your medicine and all kinds of healthcare. So that's why we believe we should go to, and we're doing research how to get there. So that's some examples. Thanks for the attention.
Thank you, Marleen. That was brilliant, and I loved your quote where you said it's important that people meet other people with the same challenges, and I think that just sums up what the Institute of Place Management is about, and sums up why we host webinars like this, because all three talks so far they could have been, it's on the Netherlands, but they quite easily could have been other countries. It's so important that we come together like this and learn from each other. So yes, the quote of the day so far. So Jeroen, you need to beat this. It's important people meet other people with the same challenges. That's absolutely so true. Marleen, thank you very much. I'm delighted now to sort of bring Jeroen in for our final sort of talk before we move into some questions. Jeroen is Centre Manager for the city centre of Utrecht, the fourth largest city in the Netherlands, a position he has held since 2012. In this capacity, he oversees a broad range of urban place management initiatives across Utrecht city centre, spanning marketing, public space, accessibility and retail development. Over the past year, Jeroen has been studying the place management and leadership degree at the IPM at Manchester Metropolitan University. His academic work produced during his programme includes papers on the development of Utrecht's place brand, the redevelopment of the Nude Square in Utrecht, and the applicability of the V&V place model within Dutch and broader European context. So since 2020, Jeroen has also served as the Boulevard Manager for Room Boulevard Utrecht and is a member of the expert team City Centres, advising urban areas, the Netherlands, on challenges including vacancy, densification and governance. And he is also co-founder and lecturer of the Centrum Management Academy in retail. And Jeroen, delighted to have you with us. And I also have to say thank you because you've been key in helping to pull this sort of dedicated session for the Netherlands together, Jeroen. So over to you, friend.
Yes, thank you. More than welcome. And thank you for having me, Ian. This afternoon, I would like to use the 10 or 11 minutes I have to tell you more about a training course I developed with several colleagues in the Netherlands, which is called the Centrum Management Academy. So why did we see an urgency for a training course for centre management 7 years ago? Already 7 years ago, and I think it started earlier, we saw that the functioning of central centers is under pressure, and that these centers are of vital importance for the entire local economy. So there was a lot of urgency to develop a training course to improve the skills of center managers. There still is a lot of demand for an innovative approach and to exchange know-how on how to roll out such an approach successfully. In the meantime, we see that the supply of these high-quality people or high-quality center managers is lagging far behind the demand for these people. And what we also see is that when city centers or villages are searching for someone to arrange these approaches, they often look for what you sometimes call a five-legged sheep or a diamond in the rough when it comes to the role of center manager. And it's difficult to find a perfect fit. What we also see is that the same questions are asked over and over again. So there are city centers that have already found solutions for problems that other centers are struggling with. In the meantime, the profession itself, being a center manager or a village manager, is relatively new and quite complex. And each urban area has its own specific challenges. In the Netherlands, there is this research program called Shopping Tomorrow. Actually, it recently started this year also. And a few years ago, I participated in the expert group Future Retail City Centers, which existed of several experts that were active within these city centers. And we discussed the problem of organizing the city center. And within these expert group, we talked about several things and saw that city centers face growing pressure from online retail and changing consumer behavior. It requires collaboration between public, private and community stakeholders like entrepreneurs, commercial real estate owners and local government. And what we also saw that successful city centers combine retail with leisure, culture, hospitality and public experience. I guess that resonates with the story Marleen told earlier about the modern agora or the forum, which we saw earlier. I put in a link in the presentation for someone who wants to read more about this research, but I think one of the main outcomes was the understanding that when we were talking with people from the Netherlands, Belgium, but also the UK, because one of the participants within this program was from IPM, actually, what we saw is that you have to understand that these city centers undergo different phases, and in order to search for solutions, you have to acknowledge in which phase your city center faces itself in. Because when you understand which phase the city center is in, it's more easily to find a solution or find a perfect fit when you're looking for a center management solution. So in this research, we defined 5 phases in which city centers go through, and based on these 5 phases, we developed a learning by doing program or training course for center managers, which is based on a spiderweb model. So what we did is we made actually 2 frameworks, one for the successful city center, which consists of 6 parts. First part has everything to do with collaboration, so working together with entrepreneurs, commercial real estate owners, and local or even national government. The second part of this steering wheel or the framework has everything to do with the basics in order. So is the city center safe? Is everything there that needs to be there, and how is it organized? And that goes for as well the physical aspects of the city center as well as the online aspects. The next part is about understanding your visitors or your customers. So what do you know about the people that are using the place? Why do they come there? How do they come there? And with how many people do they make use of the facilities that your city center has to offer? So that is knowing your customer. The next part is about place branding. So how is the place branded? And what does the city center offers to visitors and consumers? So what promise do they, does the city want to deliver when people visit the place or make use of the facilities of the city? The next part is about the development of the entrepreneurs in retail, culture and hospitality within your city. So how do they develop themselves? And how do they adapt to this changing consumer behavior? And the final part is about evaluation and continuous improvement. So if your city center finds itself in phase 5, it's really important to understand what you have already tried and done, which innovations need to be there to continue to the next level and undergo the cycle all over again. Besides this framework for thriving city centers, we also developed a framework for the city center manager. And in this framework, we focused on the competencies and the things that city centers need to know, or the abilities they need to have to be a successful center manager. We also built up this framework with 6 parts. One of the parts was being politically sensitive and strategically aware. So you need to know in which environment your city center cooperates and what are the things that are going on, as well as within your local government, but also within national government. The next part is about being able to speak the right language, so being a connector, a collaborator, and a team player. So when you're talking to local government, or you're talking to entrepreneurs, or you're talking to commercial real estate owners, they each have their own language, and you need to know what language it is in order to speak it in the right way. The next part is the ability to communicate at the appropriate level and in the appropriate language. So this actually connects to the second part of the competency framework. Fourth part is about being able to use data, so being analytical and have market-oriented knowledge. So, do you know what's going on within the market of city centers, and what do you know about data? How are these city centers evolving, and what is being done within academic research? Fifth one is the leadership capacity. So are you able to, when you know which way the city center needs to move, are you able to perform the right leadership skills to get the city there? And the final part is being about putting actually these ideas and ideas, but also research into action. So being proactive. So I think 8 years ago now we started this training program within the Netherlands, and we host the training program at one of the organizations for Dutch retail organizations in Zeist. And over the past 8 years, we already had over 100 professionals that have participated in our program all over the Netherlands, and they represent over 80 urban areas. We still continue to develop the program. So last year we developed masterclasses on AI, but also about important national programs that center managers need to know about to be successful within their own urban area. One final thought, what I think would be interesting is to see if the Vital and Viable Places framework that was developed in the UK could be useful to translate to other countries, to see if this framework can help center managers to find out in which areas they need to start. So what we see in the Netherlands is there is an understanding that something needs to be done within the city center or an area, but the main questions, or the most difficult question, is where do you start, and what do you do if you find this center manager that can work for you? So what is his or her assignment? I think these models could be useful to start and make a first start and make a difference within urban areas. Well, that was my presentation. I hope it was useful, and I'd be glad to take some questions now.
That was very useful, Jeroen, and I've heard you give that talk a couple of times now, and each time I have new ideas being sparked. And on the final point, I know about sort of the V&V being applied in other sorts of frameworks. I know Professor Steve Millington is on the call, so I'm sure he is listening to what you've just did, your challenge that you've set up, because I know it's something he's considering a lot. If we can bring in Nina, Joss, and Marleen, that would be great, just for sort of the next five or so minutes, and we'll have a little bit of a sort of a discussion. And thank you for responding to some of the questions in the chat function. That's really sort of helpful. But there's been a skills collaboration, no idea is new, being quite sort of consistent throughout the talks. But sort of Jos, bringing you in first, you mentioned that sort of the knowledge, the ideas, and not the bottleneck. Implementation is. Would you like to expand on sort of, if we have the right ideas, if we know what we should be doing, why is implementation still so hard?
Wow, that's quite a difficult question, but I think it's because we're all humans with own ideas, own opinions, own time frames. And I don't know the exact translation for that, and probably my Dutch colleagues can help. De waan van de dag. How would we translate that to in English? What I mean is that people tend to go back in their everyday work and everyday responsibilities and challenges, and let's say trying to just float above your everyday responsibility, that might help to break down barriers or go further than you've ever gone before. I've typed an answer to a question one of the participants directed at me, and the answer was that one of the unexpected effects of the city deal is that many of my senior civil servants, I think that's the correct description, from the larger Dutch cities that participate in the city deal, were very happy with the learning community that is still evolving. They've noticed that the questions or the challenges they face are not unique. They are quite similar in other cities, but there's no time, no opportunity or whatever to meet and discuss. Hey, how have you solved that problem? Probably I can use the same solution as you have tried to implement, and probably that didn't work. But in my city, it might work. So, going back to the first part of my answer, we're all humans, and let's pay attention to what our everyday responsibility is. A little bit of vulnerability, and learn from each other, and try to be successful. I don't have a magic formula that everything works, but learning from each other and paying attention to what might work, that's I think already a step.
That absolutely is already a step. And Marleen, the work you are doing is essentially to learn from each other, to bring people together, to connect those sorts of dots. And we have, I think anyone who has been on this call will look at what is going on in the Netherlands and say you are really quite forward thinking. Your presentation, Marleen, was sort of, you were thinking about the next steps, you were bringing people together. It surely can't all be that good. There must be challenges, there must be problems as well.
Of course. You want to know all the problems?
Tell us some of the things that are challenging for you as well.
Well, of course, collaboration is a big challenge, where all people with you call it outseer, is like a history with each other. When you don't want to work together so close because of you have some strange history, I think that's a big challenge. In the modern Agora, it's a big challenge to convince the real estate owners to not focus completely on the amount of money that they earn from their real estate, but focus more on the people side, and more on the impact they can make with their real estate. And I think that's it will take some years, maybe 10, 20 years even, to convince them that that's how we see the future. So enough challenges there.
Yeah, so personal. Josh, thank you very much for joining us.
I need to move on. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for joining with us.
Thank you.
Marleen, yes, personal history and sort of relationships, that can be quite complex. So
Yeah.
the making building owners realise the economic impact of being part of that wider place is absolutely sort of important. But Nina, if I can bring you in for the Netherlands Day, I think the numbers were about 5 to 6 million sort of in euros. You said that you sort of generated.
Yeah.
That seems to be quite a good return on investment. How did you work through that economic sort of valuation, the return?
I have to. I can't give you a detailed answer because that wasn't the thing I focused on specifically. But I know that we did a lot of public research on the spending, so the economic spending that they had from visitors outside of Rotterdam, so not specifically the residents itself. So about 48% of the people in Rotterdam on that day were visitors from neighboring municipalities and everything. So we took 48% of the total economic generation on that day to calculate the 6 or 7 million. Yeah.
But the event itself managed to bring footfall in, managed to bring increased spending in. And we know events and festivals, that really does sort of help. I'm mindful that we're coming to the sort of the end, Jeroen. So I would just like to sort of come back to you again, say thank you for sort of helping to set this up. But the work you've been doing over the past 10 years around the skills, sort of making place management more sort of well known in the Netherlands, a little bit of a question, whether you can answer in a minute or so. What are the next 5 years for your organisation and your sort of academy? Where do you see it going next?
What we see next is, of course, since we already had 100 professional in the course, we might, I think, focus more on keeping these 100 professionals up to date through masterclasses, instead of keeping this program running, because we already had a lot of center managers in this education. So I think the way to go is to also keep on learning ourselves. So the program is never finished. So we keep on adding new tools and new information to the program to keep these center managers up to date. And one of the things we are thinking about is about having a specialized training for the larger city centers and one for the smaller ones, because they tend to have specific problems there. So that's one of the directions we think of going. And besides that, I think one of the ways to go is including more and more academic research within our practical program, because I think the bridging the gap between academic research and practitioners is still needs to be done.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's a conversation we both had sort of Jeroen. But what you were saying about the first part is building that place community, continuing to connect, continuing to learn from each other, which is essentially why we put webinars on like this. And sort of coming to the final minute, so I don't want to run sort of over. I would just like to say, on behalf of everyone who's been on the call, I think we've had people from Brazil, Colombia, East Africa, India. So there's been a global sort of exchange of knowledge here. I think everyone will go away thinking, the Netherlands, you're really doing some wonderful work. I would encourage people to please connect on LinkedIn and social media channels with the colleagues on sort of board today, and vice versa. Please, panelists, please do connect with others. Just finally to say thank you to the Regional Studies Association for hosting the session and working in collaboration with the Institute of Place Management on this. This is the fourth of 4 webinars that we've been hosting. We will have a little bit of a pause and then we will pick them up again later on in the year. But thank you very much. That has been wonderful, and keep connecting, keep learning from each other. I think that's the message that's really come across today. So Jeroen, Nina, Marleen, thank you very much. And best wishes to everyone on the call. Cheerio.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.